I want to tell you about a man I will call Raymond. He was 68 years old, a former high school history teacher from Central Ohio, 29 years in the classroom. He was not careless with money. He saved what he could. He paid off his mortgage 4 years before he retired. He drove the same truck for 11 years because he did not want car payments following him into retirement. And when Social Security started at 67, he felt genuinely prepared. The check was $2,040 a month. He had done the math. He knew his fixed expenses. He had a savings account with about $32,000 that he treated as his emergency fund. He told himself the hard part was over. Then in his second winter of retirement, his furnace failed. Replacement cost $3,100. He paid it. But when the check cleared, his savings account had $800 left in it. And Raymond sat at his kitchen table and realized something that no retirement article had ever explained to him clearly. He was not poor. He was not in crisis. But he was one bad month away from having no buffer at all. The only income coming in was the Social Security check. There was no second lever, no pension, no investment account generating anything reliable, no other stream he could tap or adjust. Just one fixed payment from one government agency and the entire weight of his retirement sitting on top of it. That quiet terror of structural fragility is the most common unreported financial experience in American retirement, and the difference between retirees who feel it and retirees who do not almost never comes down to how much they saved. It comes down to how many income streams they built. My name is Kevin, and this is Kevin Retiree Strategy. Every week I break down retirement income decisions, withdrawal structures, taxes, and the money psychology that determines whether retirement actually feels the way people imagined it would. Subscribe right now and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not financial or investment advice. Always consult a qualified financial professional before making decisions about your specific situation. Now let me put real numbers on the table because this conversation needs to be grounded in what is actually happening. The Social Security Administration estimates the average monthly retired worker benefit for January 2026 at $2,071. For an aged couple where both spouses are receiving benefits, that average is $3,208 per month. Those are meaningful numbers. Nearly $25,000 a year for a single retiree. Over $38,000 for a couple. So when millions of American retirees still feel financially fragile despite receiving those checks every single month, the explanation is not the dollar amount. It is the structure around that dollar amount, or more precisely, what is not around it. The Federal Reserve has reported that retirees with income from employment, pensions, or investments were doing substantially better than retirees who relied solely on Social Security or other public income sources. Substantially better. This video is about exactly what that means. Because it is not just about having more money. It runs through tax bills, Medicare costs, withdrawal pressure, and the daily psychological experience of retirement in ways most people never see until they are already living inside them. Let me show you the financial consequence most retirees never see coming. And I want to walk you through it using Raymond, because his situation is more common than most people realize. After the furnace, Raymond had $800 left in savings. The Social Security check kept coming, but the margin was gone. A few months later, his car needed brake work. $1,400. He had no cushion left to absorb it, so he did what felt like the obvious thing. He took $1,400 from his traditional IRA. He had about $90,000 in that account and figured one small withdrawal was not a big deal. What Raymond did not know is that the IRS has a calculation called combined income. It is your adjusted gross income, plus any tax-exempt interest, plus half of your Social Security benefits. For Raymond, half of his annual Social Security of roughly $24,000 was $12,000. His adjusted gross income before any IRA withdrawal was sitting close to that $12,000. Combined, he was around $24,000, well below the threshold where Social Security gets heavily taxed. But then came a harder year. His roof started failing. He needed to replace it. He pulled $28,000 from the IRA. And now his combined income jumped to approximately $40,000. He had crossed the $34,000 threshold for single filers. That crossing meant up to 85% of his Social Security benefit was now federally taxable ordinary income instead of 50%. To be clear, actual tax outcomes vary based on individual deductions, state taxes, and specific circumstances. But directionally, that kind of jump in combined income can cost a retiree hundreds to thousands of dollars in additional federal taxes on income they were already receiving. The IRA withdrawal did not just bring in cash for the roof. A portion of what it triggered in extra taxes came not from the new IRA income alone, but from making his existing Social Security more expensive. He solved his roof problem and created a tax problem in the same transaction. And then something even more invisible happened. 2 years after the roof, Raymond got a Medicare notice. His Part B premium had increased. Now here's how to understand what happened. The standard Medicare Part B premium in 2026 is $202.90 per month. There are formal IRMAA surcharge tiers that begin above $109,000 in modified adjusted gross income for individual filers and above $218,000 for married couples. Raymond was not near those numbers. But the 2-year look-back rule that governs Medicare premium adjustments is the principle that applies to almost every retiree making large IRA withdrawals, not just high earners. When your income spikes in 1 year, Medicare recalculates your exposure based on that spike 2 years later. For retirees close to any income tier boundary, even a single large reactive withdrawal can nudge premiums upward in ways that feel completely disconnected from the original problem. Raymond fixed his roof in 1 year and paid for it in 2. The crisis withdrawal, made under pressure with no other option available, was still costing him money long after the roof was finished. That is the cascade. And here is what makes it so important. The retirees who avoid this cascade are not always the wealthiest ones. They are the ones who had a second income source that absorbed the shock, who never needed to pull an oversized amount from the IRA, who never triggered the Social Security taxation jump, whose Medicare exposure never shifted because their income stayed consistent. The second income layer did not just feel safer. In a situation like Raymond's, it would have saved real money across multiple years. Now let me talk about what that second income layer actually looks like, because I am not going to give you a list of 6 options and leave you to figure out which one applies. For most retirees and near retirees watching this video, there are 3 that deserve your attention first. The first is planned systematic withdrawals from a retirement account. This is not about pulling money when you need it. It is about designing consistent, intentional annual withdrawals from a traditional IRA or Roth IRA that are sized carefully to keep your combined income below the Social Security taxation thresholds. The difference between a retiree who takes $12,000 a year from their IRA every year as part of a plan and a retiree who takes nothing for years and then pulls $28,000 in a crisis is not just the dollar amount. It is the tax consequence and the Medicare exposure downstream. Raymond's cascade was not inevitable. It was the predictable outcome of having no withdrawal plan. A retiree with a structured annual withdrawal, even a modest one, keeps their combined income predictable, keeps their Social Security taxation manageable, and never arrives at a crisis year with no options except a large reactive pull. Planned is the operative word. A withdrawal strategy designed in advance is a fundamentally different tool than emergency access to a dormant account. The second is part-time income in the early years of retirement. Even $200 to $400 a month from part-time consulting, a seasonal position, or occasional freelance work creates a recurring, predictable income layer that changes the entire experience of early retirement. But the less obvious benefit is this. Part-time income in the early retirement years often allows a retiree to delay Social Security claiming, arriving at a permanently higher monthly benefit. And a higher base benefit means every future cost of living adjustment is applied to a larger number, compounding the advantage every single year for the rest of retirement. The monthly income from part-time work matters. The larger permanent Social Security benefit it enables can matter more. The third is dividend-producing investments inside a retirement or brokerage account. Not stock picking, not market timing. Positioning a portion of savings into broadly diversified investments that generate regular income without requiring principal to be sold. A retiree with $40,000 generating a modest 3 to 4% annually receives somewhere between $100 and $130 a month. That number can sound small on its own. But the structural role it plays is not about what it provides. It is about what it prevents. A small recurring income source that absorbs routine pressure means a retiree never has to pull an emergency $28,000 from an IRA because a manageable expense had nowhere else to go. The $100 a month is not the point. The $28,000 cascade it prevents is the point. Depending on your situation, rental income and properly structured annuities are also worth exploring with a qualified advisor. But for most viewers starting from scratch, the 3 that matter most are systematic planned withdrawals, part-time income, and dividend-producing investments. Now let me show you what the structural difference actually looks like in 2 real lives, because numbers only mean so much. What matters is the experience. Retiree A is 67 years old. She receives $2,071 a month from Social Security. She has $45,000 in a savings account, nothing generating consistent investment income. Every month the check arrives, the bills go out, the margin is about $250. When her car needed $1,100 in repairs, she put part of it on a credit card and paid it off over 4 months while cutting spending on groceries and small pleasures. She is not in financial trouble, but she describes retirement as staying on top of it, never quite ahead of it. And 2 years ago, she decided not to take a trip she had planned for years, not because the trip was too expensive in isolation, but because the structure told her she could not afford to move that much money at once. The trip never happened. She is still thinking about it. Retiree B is also 67 years old. He receives the same $2,071 Social Security check. He also has $820 a month from a modest pension he earned over 18 years at a manufacturing plant. Total monthly income, $2,891. When his water heater needed replacing, he covered it from 1 month's pension income without touching his Social Security or his savings. When his grandson needed help with a school trip deposit, he helped the same week without calculating whether he could afford it. He reviews his finances quarterly, not daily. He does not feel like he is managing. He feels like he is choosing. Here is the rule this contrast demonstrates. 1 income layer means every unexpected expense is a threat. 2 income layers mean most unexpected expenses are inconveniences. The dollar amounts in these 2 situations are not dramatically different. The structural experience is completely different. And the structure shapes not just the emergencies. It shapes the ordinary Tuesdays too. When retiree A's refrigerator started making noise, she waited 14 months before replacing it. Not because she could not eventually afford a new one, but because the structure told her to wait, to be careful, to not move money unless she had to. Retiree B replaced his the month it started making noise. Same appliance, completely different relationship with the decision. The structure is the difference. The EBRI 2026 Retirement Confidence Survey captured the tension underneath this precisely. 3 in 4 retirees reported they can spend money how they want within reason. And yet retiree confidence fell in 2026 and concerns about running out of money remained significant. Both things are true at the same time in the same population. Surface freedom with underlying worry. And that combination, spending adequately but never quite feeling safe, is the signature experience of the single source retirement. Now I want to spend a moment on what structural fragility actually does to a retiree over time. Because the tax cascade is the visible cost. The Medicare pressure is the delayed cost. But there is a third cost that is harder to measure and just as real. When your only income source is a fixed monthly check, you develop a permanent bias toward caution. You underspend chronically. Not because you cannot afford certain things in a given month, but because every discretionary dollar spent today is a dollar not available when the next unexpected expense arrives. Retiree A did not take her trip. Not because she was broke, because the structure gave her no permission to move. She saved for decades. She retired responsibly. And the income architecture she arrived at was quietly preventing her from living the retirement she actually built. That is not a dramatic crisis. It is a slow, quiet cost that accumulates over years. A retiree with a second income layer does not face that bias in the same way. When the budget has flexibility built in, discretionary spending becomes a choice rather than a risk calculation. The trip gets taken, the refrigerator gets replaced on schedule, the grandchild gets help the same week. Not because there is dramatically more money, but because the structure provides permission that the single source architecture never quite gives. Now let me give you the practical checklist. 5 specific actions ordered by immediacy. First, write down every source of income you currently have or expect to have in retirement. Social Security, any pension, investment withdrawals, rental income, part-time work, anything recurring. Count the items. If there is one, that is not a failure. That is information. And information is where every good decision starts. Second, calculate your projected combined income for Social Security taxation purposes. Add your expected adjusted gross income in retirement, any tax-exempt interest, and half of your projected annual Social Security benefit. For single filers, if that number exceeds $34,000, up to 85% of your benefit becomes federally taxable. For married couples filing jointly, the upper threshold is $44,000. Knowing this before retirement is far more useful than discovering it on your first tax return as a retiree. Third, think carefully about the annual size of IRA withdrawals you plan to take, and whether consistent planned withdrawals are part of your income design, or whether your IRA is sitting untouched waiting for an emergency. In most cases, smaller planned withdrawals across more years produce dramatically better tax outcomes than large reactive withdrawals in crisis years. This conversation is worth having with a tax-aware financial professional before retirement begins, not during a pressure situation inside it. Fourth, if you are within 5 years of retirement, understand the Medicare 2-year look-back. The standard Part B premium is $202.90. Formal IRMA surcharges begin above $109,000 for individual filers and $218,000 for married couples. But even for retirees well below those thresholds, a large income spike in 1 year can shift Medicare cost exposure in ways that show up 2 years later. Large reactive IRA withdrawals and the Medicare premium calendar are connected. Most retirees do not know that until it is too late to change it. Fifth, identify one concrete step toward a second income layer before retirement. A commitment to planned systematic withdrawals from your IRA as part of a structured income design is a step. Positioning a portion of savings toward dividend-producing investments that generate recurring income without requiring principal drawdown is a step. Considering part-time work and early retirement to allow Social Security to grow to a permanently higher base benefit is a step. The action does not need to be dramatic. It needs to be directional. One additional reliable income source changes the architecture of everything that comes after it. The truth that the Federal Reserve data keeps pointing toward is this: retirees doing substantially better are not always the ones with the largest account balances. They are the ones with more than one income source. More flexibility when something goes wrong. More protection against the tax cascades that reactive withdrawals can trigger. More insulation from the Medicare cost exposure that a high-income year can create 2 years into the future. More permission to actually spend the retirement they saved for. Social Security was designed to be a foundation, a base layer, something to build a retirement on top of, not something to carry the entire weight of retirement by itself. Raymond built a solid foundation. He just never built what was supposed to go on top of it. And the cost of that was not just financial. It was the furnace at $3,100, the roof at $28,000, the tax consequence he did not see coming, the Medicare notice that arrived 2 years after a problem he thought was already solved, and the fishing trip with his brother that he kept saying he would take next year. He is still saying it. If you are still working, you still have time to build something on top of your foundation. If you are already retired with one income layer, there are still moves available. The 5 steps in this checklist are a place to start. This is Kevin Retiree Strategy. If this video changed the way you are thinking about your retirement income structure, hit the like button right now. It helps this channel reach more retirees who need to hear this. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next video. And drop a comment right now with one specific answer. If you are already retired, tell me what your second income layer looks like, or tell me exactly what is standing between you and building one. That one comment helps me understand what this audience actually needs, and it shapes the videos I make next. I read every single one.